Welcome to String Theory with Anthony Douglas. I am your host, Anthony Douglas. Well, we did it. We made it through a day of driving. Now I'm here at my gig, waiting to go on the stage and talk to you, and this is part two of a little series I'm doing, however many parts of this I do. And the first part that we did this afternoon, I began talking about vans, buses, traveling, and the things that you will encounter when you're traveling. Here we go. It's call for a Red Bull, I think. Yeah, that's gonna boost me up here at the switching yard, that's for sure. But at any rate, going back into it, traveling with that group, that girl group that I was talking about, traveling, doing crazy tours. And I remember some people didn't last that long, I think one guy got out there and he lasted a week. Because it's tough. It's just really tough to, it takes a lot of endurance, which is more important than truth, happy baby. Yeah. And with all that endurance comes sustainability. You have to be able to sustain yourself. You have to be able to, when it's time to leave the band for a while, not leave them musically, or leave the band business-wise, but you know what I'm talking about. Leave them and go on the plane for a while. And let them in their insanity. Leave them laying in it, happy baby. Leave them just laying in it. Yeah, they're zoo on wheels. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Now, there was a time that they let me off for a little while, right? I don't know where I went. I went somewhere. It's been a while. But as I, got done doing whatever I was doing, it was time to come back into the fold, happy baby. And they brought me in there, and I believe they put me on a plane and sent me to wherever they were. And then I just began to, ask, how are you doing? How are people? How are things going with the band? To one of the girls. I think it was the lead singer. You know all about lead singers and their microphones, don't you, happy baby? But how, she said, well, they're treating me mean as we're riding along in her car. Some state, I don't even know which state we were in. Iowa, Mississippi. I don't know where the world we were. Northern Michigan. But we were somewhere and I was riding in her car. Oh, they're treating me mean. They're treating me horrible. I said, who? She said, the guys. All the guys in the van. They're just treating me very, very bad. Oh, yes. Yes. You sensed something, didn't you, baby? You felt a jolt from your heart. A click. And thunder and a flash from the lightning bolt. Didn't you, baby? Didn't you? But what I'm saying here is I pressed a little further. I said, so they're just treating you mean out there? They're just being mean to you? Yeah. And they get, meaner every day. I mean, they just, and nobody talks to each other and they just, no matter what, I said, I know what the problem is, baby. I said, how long has it been since you've had a motel with these men? And she says, well, it's been weeks. We've just been traveling the whole while. I says, and you've been sleeping in here? You didn't get them a room? They haven't had their own rooms individually? They've just been with you this whole while like this? Yeah. I said, look, you need to rent a motel and let them masturbate. Yes, baby. Masturbate. They're human. They're mammals. They need this, baby. And she goes, what? I said, just do what I say. Just rent a motel and let them, one guy in there for a little while, tell them just to have some private time. One guy goes in for a while, then another guy goes in, She did that. And then she came back and yes, it was Northern Michigan because we were opening up for Crystal Gale. I remember this now. Yes, Crystal Gale. At any rate, so, I'm in the lobby of this place, and it's late, after hours. And she came up to me and she said, Tony, I found you. You're in the lobby. That's great. She says, I want to tell you something. That worked. What you told me to do, renting a motel and letting the guys just do their thing. She said, Tony, they're so nice. I said, isn't that amazing how that works? Yeah, that works really good. It really does. And she looks at me and she goes, well, I'm going to go to my room now. I says, well, what are you going to do? She says, I'm going to go masturbate. I'm going to go jack off in my room. Yeah, baby. Yeah. When you're in buses, now, this is RVs, which are more crammed, and, we had our sleeping spaces. And a lot of times I would lay on the floor. They'd slam on the brakes, to avoid hitting a car or something, and I'd get rug burns. No seatbelt, no nothing. You're just wondering. You're wondering if you're going to get seriously injured, or something's going to happen, or there's just so many things that really do go on here. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But I have heard horror stories about people, bands that tour in buses. Yes, baby. Let's hear of some of the things I've heard about it. Now, as you know, I've not been on a national tour with a bus. RVs, yes, but not a bus. However, I did when I was living up in Washington State. As you know from the last video, there was a guy that had a bus up there, and we would go to all the gigs, and sometimes the gigs were far away, but it was always within the state, of where we were going. But, yes, baby, Crisco parties on the band bus. Let's talk about that for a minute. And I don't know whether this particular thing is urban legend. If anybody knows about Crisco parties, just drop a line, or just tell in the comments section about it. But be respectful, don't get too gross. But yeah, these things were, from what I understand, I don't know whether they all brought their own Visiquin or put Visiquin down and got naked and put Crisco all over themselves. Yikes. Man, would I run. You'd never see me again if that happened. I can't tell you how fast cars would be rented, planes would be taken. I would be so far away from that. My gosh. If that ever happened, all this other stuff that we've been talking about, that's all happened. But the Crisco parties on the band bus, yeah. I don't know, maybe that's urban legend. I don't really know. But yeah, there are people, bands and acts that you could look at and go, yeah, they probably had a Crisco party. Gosh. And then there are other things too that we must discuss. I was working with this lady, she was having me do some recording for her. She was having me doing some touring with her. I remember I was in a small town with her one time, and she just gets to the bar and she goes, "Hey, could you do my gig for me tonight?" And I go, no, I'm not gonna do your gig for you tonight. These are your people, your audience, everything. You're gonna do your own gig. All right. She gets out there and she just knocks him dead, This is old country music. This is stuff from the 50s. in the 60s, the old honky-tonk country. She wasn't doing Patsy Cline and pop country like that. She was doing the serious hardcore honky-tonk stuff like Buck Owens and Hank Williams and stuff like that. And she made all that stuff sound good. She had a great right hand. Man, just played the rhythm guitar like you can't believe. And sang that stuff. Man, like Dottie West or something. Like Dottie West doing old country, not when she turned pop, of course. But let's get back into this. And then she says, "Hey, I got this big road tour coming up. We're gonna, tour in Arizona. We're gonna tour in California. We're just gonna tour all over the place, baby." And I said, "Yeah, okay, count me in on that one, right?" And guess what she did, baby? Guess what she did, happy baby? She went out and bought a van. Yes, a van. And then she just pulled up and said, "I bought this conversion van, sweetie pie." And, she's driving it and, noticing her legs, And then pretty soon she's having me drive it, poor baby at the helm. Yeah. And, she stops the car at this motel, the van, at this motel, and it was a horrible motel. And she puts me up in it. And it just was horrible. And I had to stay there all night. She partied with the rest of the van, and I'm in there. I'm just going, my gosh, this is horrible. Then, I'm not going to say the band and me and everybody else was not thrilled with each other. We were not that thrilled at all. And then she has me in this other place that has like a whorehouse on top, like an old Bardello thing, And then she goes, "Well, this guy, he followed us, but I'm going to have you have your own room because he's going to be sleeping with me in this room." And I told her, "I'm not giving up my room for another band that's coming in here. I'm not going to do that." Well, you have to. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, I'll kick this guy out of my room and then put this guy in, and then you can have your own room. I said, that's wonderful. That's great thinking. And I did. I got my own room, and, I went out in the kitchen area when I was sleeping, and I smelled a terrible odor out there. And here, the man that she kicked out of her room now is with another woman, and they're both naked in the kitchen, happy baby. Yes. And you could hear them, man. You could just hear them moaning and everything else. But then I went down there, and they were like, standing there like Adam and Eve. And then I went back. I had to go back because I had to keep going to the bathroom because it was a community bathroom. And there they stood again. They stood there. And this just kept happening. And then finally they were down like animals growling at the cabinets. finally, I think I might have gotten some sleep in that horrible band house above the bar, as always. Oh my goodness. And then when I woke up, there they were. Their clothes, not them. Their clothes were strung all over the place. I thought, what the heck did they do? You know, what happened? You know, where did they go? You know, and I got to back up a little bit, because the last time I went in there, he went, "Tony, I'm really sorry." I went, "Oh, you know, it's all right, whatever." You know, he's apologizing, and, you know, he's naked, and now there's just clothes all over, their clothes. And I go downstairs, you know, this building's built probably in the 1800s, and I go down these stairs, get to the end of the staircase, and this car pulls up. There they are with new clothes. They look showered and everything. Go, "Hi, Tony, how are you doing?" He says, "Boy, that was really something last night." He says, "Last time I saw you, I was buck-ass naked." I was like, yeah. But now I got to go to work in here. I got to knock down another gig, and we'll continue this. We'll get into the part 3 of vans, RVs, and traveling. Okay. Take care.